It's good to have you join us on the program from the National Assembly, House of Representatives. I am Itaire Iben. The House of Representatives is on recess. However, its various committees have been sitting to address one critical national issue or the other. On the program today, we will bring you one of the sittings of the House Ad Hoc Committee on Students' Loan and Higher Education. That committee is seeking to know the progress on implementation of the Students' Loan Scheme and how perceived challenges can be eliminated. Let's take a listen.
It is my pleasure to once again declare this meeting open so that we discuss issues that have to do with our great country, Nigeria, and the future of our students and the younger generation coming behind us, especially as it has to do with our education, especially the tertiary education of Nigeria. The President of Nigeria signed into law the Student Loans and Access to Higher Education Act 2023. This law was passed by the Ninth House of Representatives to help advance tertiary education in Nigeria, promote the funding of tertiary education, and support families, sponsor their children to tertiary education without the pressure of school fees, especially with the subsidy removal and some of the economic challenges that we're facing in the country today. So the student loan scheme is part of the palliatives that the federal government wants to introduce to Nigerians. And that is why Nigerians are so passionate and so interested in this issue. And that is why the 10th House of Representatives formed this ad hoc committee to help the federal government come up with a proper framework and to come up with some amendments to the act so that the implementation can be smooth and Nigerians can believe that truly this Student Loans Act will be implemented for the benefit of our youths and Nigerian students. The committee held its first meeting on the 25th of July, where we deliberated on some of the issues that we observed in the Student Loans Act and areas where we felt that the Act created too many bottlenecks and too many encumbrances for participation by students. At the last meeting we held, the Ministry of Education was here with us, represented by the Director of Legal Services. But unfortunately, we were unable to get proper details of what the federal government is currently planning concerning the student loans scheme and how the National Assembly, the House of Reps specifically, can support the federal government to amend this act and create this platform where this act can be properly implemented. And that is why we've re-invited the Federal Ministry of Education here today. And also we decided to also invite other members of the technical committee, including the Central Bank, the Budget Office, the Ministry of Finance, and of course, the Office of the Chief of Staff, who is overseeing this technical committee on amending the Student Loans Act. So we are happy, you're welcome, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, and representatives of the acting Central Bank Governor. We will do brief introductions before we go into the details of discussions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and the invited, the General Press. Ganiu Adile Ayuba is my name. I represent Alimosho Federal Constituency, Lagos State. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and my colleagues, Mark Eset is my name, representing Uyo Uran Sadatai, Ibesibo Sultan, Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State.
Colleagues, invited guests, my name is Kobis Aditinu, representing the good people of Shedem Constituency of Adamawa State.
This is Abosi, the clerk to the committee.
So I think the next item is to hear briefly from the Ministry of Education before introductions first, and then introductions by the Central.
Chairman of the Ad hoc Committee on Student Loans and Access to Higher Education and members. I say good morning, colleagues on the government side, members of the press. My name is Andrew David Adejo, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education. Thank you, sir.
The chairman, other members of the committee, good morning all. My name is Dajio Asta, Director in the Federal Ministry of Education, in charge of federal scholarship.
Mr. Chairman and honorable members, my name is Oluwashi Ibada, Technical Assistant to the Permanent Secretary.
Mr. Chairman and other honorable members of the committee, my name is Ikechukwu Oguama, Assistant Director of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Mr. Chairman and members of this honorable committee, my name is Kofo Salam Alada, Director, Legal Services and Legal Advisor, Central Bank of Nigeria, representing the acting governor. He sends his apology. Today is a National Council, as the chairman will be aware, and that's why he's not here. Thank you, Chair and members.
Chairman, good morning, honorable members. My name is Dr. Tukuru Galadima, and I'm from Legal Services Department of the Central Bank.
We can just dive straight in. Ministry of Education, Mr. Pamsek, we would like to know your perspective from the Ministry of Education on what progress has been made so far since this act was signed into law. This act is an education act because it concerns students. So we have put a lot of attention on the Ministry of Education because we believe that the ministry is particularly responsible for ensuring the success of this act. So we want to know what progress has been made so far and what are your suggestions on how you think that we can move ahead to implement this act and what role you think that, or how we can assist, what amendments you think will be relevant in the implementation of this act from the perspective of the Ministry of Education. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman and members of the committee. Like we all know, this is an act that was is very dear to Mr. President. That's the signing it as the first act he signed with us because it's more than symbolic. And immediately he did that, the President established a committee. And the committee was established because, first and foremost, Nigerians started reacting to the bill. What was on the public domain was the bill, not the act that was conveyed to Mr. President. But once the Mr. President signed the act, we had the opportunity of listening to what they were saying and looked at the act and said, okay, this that is happening, let's take another. The committee was set up under the leadership of the Chief of Staff, arguably so, because like we all know, he was the mover of the bill. We've been meeting as a committee and we've looked at specific areas that we think should be further refined to be able to answer all the questions that Nigerians needed answered, and most importantly to make the act very responsive to the need to increase access to higher education, especially for those people that could not afford it. The committee is meeting. We met as a broader committee, the CBN, the Ministry of Finance, Education, Budget Office. And our last meeting was on 13th of July. And what we agreed was for the technical group to keep working. And what they were to start working on is, we've agreed on some basic things that yes are going to change. But beyond what will change in the act, our focus is how we get this implementation on. And the technical committee has gone ahead and they've done some work in looking at the most effective way to make sure that these funds reach the people that are intended to reach, give them enough breather to be able to repay when the need comes, and to plug gaps that we've been having in such schemes before. The technical committee is here to get back to the main committee for me to exactly say this is what the specific things are. And that is why specifically, I don't have any more new thing to add to what my Director of Legal Services said. And to just let the members of this committee know that my not coming here that day was because I had to attend the African Social Impact Summit in Lagos. And so it's not as if it's a way of saying, no, I don't want to respond to your call. And more so that the Director of Legal Services and my technical assistant that has been working on the thing, they have all the information that I also have. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A few questions. After the Student Loans Act was signed into law, there was an issue of increase of school fees by some tertiary educations in the country. And we think that this school fees increase was a preemptive move by the universities across the country in anticipation that government was about to pump in resources into the student loans program. But we as a National Assembly also passed a resolution that universities across the country should not increase their school fees and wait until the student loans program is commenced, the implementation has commenced, so that we can have a proper balanced way of implementing the scheme and not overshoot school fees at the universities. What is the current status of this issue and what have the ministry been able to resolve on this issue of school fees for public institutions?
The issue of school fees increase after the signing of the act is an unfortunate coincidence. Unfortunate coincidence because the responsibility for increasing, first and foremost, there's no university in this country, federally owned, that charges tuition fees. Tuition by all federal universities is free. What students pay, and we some of us also did when we're going to school, were charges, accommodation, lights, registration, laboratory fees, and a number of those issues. Now, all universities are governed by a governing council, whose responsibility it is to make sure that the school runs. So they look at those charges on a daily basis, monitor it. So a number of universities have started increasing those other charges. We all know tariff rates have gone up for lights. We all know that accommodation, most universities now cannot even afford to build houses. So they go into private partnership with some developers and they get, they get, sorry for the lack of a good word, but they get an acceptable rate, so to say, that is not too expensive for students. And for science students and medical students, they pay for lab, they do experiments, reagent costs have gone up. So most universities are using the governing councils. The governing councils give approval and the universities go ahead. What happened after the act was signed was because government dissolved all governing councils. So that decision that would have been taken at the governing council had to come to the ministry. Because in the absence of the governing council, the ministry takes that decision. And there's only one school that came, and that was University of Lagos. And let's put this increase of other charges in perspective. Government does not want to punish Nigerians. We want more people to go into school. But a situation where all our federal universities are charging rates that they charged about 15, 20 years ago, irrespective of what the economy is saying. So when UNILAG sent their request, for instance, they are increasing the fees for medical students from 150-something thousand per year to 300,000 naira plus. Secondary school these days, people pay more than that. And so when it came, we gave the approval. I said, yes, go ahead. There's no council. The logic was there. Now, when the outcry came up, the presidency made a case, said no more increase. The House also said no more increase. And we stopped all the requests they have put. It was piled up in the ministry. We are not taking any further action. But to still say that once councils come on board, it's their decision to take. And except if we find a way, which it will be difficult for federal government to do, to increase funding to universities, they must be paying for lights. We just had to bail out Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, that was owing over $1 billion naira light charges. And these are charges to people, but because there was a cap on that, they could not pay, beside the Ganishi order they have for one or two other reasons. So, and for how many universities can federal government look for such money? We were lucky that there was fund meant for the construction of a theater. And we told them, well, you can't go ahead with your theater. All these theaters, we have to step them down. Light is very important. If you all know, I mean, ABU did not resume on time this year. They were locked out because no light. So, as at now, the ministry is not giving approvals for any fees increase. Like I said, I have a lot of them in the office, but I think it's important that Nigerians need to really, let us really be fair to ourselves. If somebody can spend 100,000 to send his child to a secondary school for one term, and they are saying university pay for lights, pay for registration, pay for laboratory equipment from 100 to 150,000, at least we need to get the right narrative out there, sir. Thank you, Honorable sir.
Okay, man. Honorable colleagues, the Permanent Secretary, thank you for your explanation. But I have some reservations on one, the work of the technical committee on the implementation of this students' loan. That the bill has been assented to for, I think, 2 months now, or thereabouts. The technical committee is still working, which means as it stands, because you've mentioned some issues to be really reworked on the bill, which means the program cannot take off until the act is repealed, or it has to be amended. It can work. So the assent of the president on the bill itself is more or less as if nothing has been done. That is what we believe, and like you rightly said, the outcry of students and parents, and based on this, universities are jacking up or coming with requests to increase their salary. But like you said, you see, when you justify why schools should increase salaries, I mean school fees, these are federal institutions.
Honorable sir, I did not say schools should increase school fees, and I need to. They increase other charges.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for the correction. When you justify why schools should increase other charges, first, these are federal institutions. They receive subvention from federal government. They do. And for example, the University of Zaria, you're saying, owed over $1 billion naira electricity. And they were charging students during those periods. And students were paying. And as at that time, the electricity tariff was not increased. What were they doing with the funds to have accumulated such a debt that will warrant an increment of charges now because they need to pay off the debt? It's not realistic. It's not justifiable anywhere. When you are comparing private schools charging 100,000 without subvention from federal government to a school that is being subvented by the federal government, how can you bring the two together? It doesn't work. So there is no justification for the ministry to have approved increment for the University of Lagos at all. And you are piling up other requests with the belief that when the governing council comes on board, they will now go and increase it as the way they like. Even after the House of Reps has passed a resolution stopping such increments. And the federal government also come up with it. They're not fair to us. One, for the ministry to have approved such increment, there's no respect for these institutions. Neither is there any respect for the federal government. So to me, I think the chairman, we should frown on such. The resolutions of the House must
Can I put some things in
respect
perspective? First, we increase for UNIJOS. The House of Rep has not passed a resolution on the matter. The President has not made a pronouncement on the matter.
I think, Permanent Secretary, sorry.
Sir?
I think if I have the leave of the chairman, we should call for the investigation of all what the University of Jos did with the charges they had been charging students that will warrant their increment of school fees because they want to pay for the bad luck of electricity tariff that has been paid for by students for over the years.
Sorry, sir. Let me first, sir. The increase for Unilag, like I said, did not come after the House of Rep or the presidential directive. And I did mention it that immediately the House of Rep passed that resolution and the president said no to school fees. We're just piling it up. I also said, sir, it is not the responsibility of the ministry to whether they want to increase other charges or not. It's the responsibility of the governing council. It's because of the absence of the governing council, which the Act provides for, that we took that role. Again, sir, I did not say they were piling it up for governing council to come and approve. It's their decision. I need to be clear, sir. Most importantly, I never compared federal institutions, tertiary, with private. I was comparing them with secondary school. And I dare to be corrected, sir. If there's any secondary school in this country, secondary, private, that charges less than 100,000 a month, a term, I'm just putting the basis. What I'm saying, and that is where we need to look at it. ABU's case is not a case that happened a year or two ago. You need the history. The House is, it's your prerogative, and we look forward to such an investigation because we are doing it in the ministry. We need the schools to tell us, how have you been spending this money? So it will be a welcome development, sir, if you institute an investigation to all our federal universities to find out. But from where I sit, sir, I went to school by the grace of God. I graduated in 1987. The difference in charges in my school for accommodation from 1987 when I graduated to now is no more than 30,000. I paid 90,000 as a student for accommodation. The students these days are paying 120,000. But my own point is that as Federal Ministry of Education, it's our responsibility to make sure that as many Nigerians as possible get access to higher education without placing undue burden on the parents, taking cognizance of what government can do and what parents can do. So the scholarship did not trigger any school increase. Since the scholarship was announced or signed, I say it, only one school, Unilag. So where is the story coming from? And we need to be very clear on some of these things, sir. Only University of Lagos. Before then, other universities, they increased their fees. The Senate gave approval, the council looked at it, they did analysis. But when they came out, they did their increase. Uni made other schools. It's only University of Lagos. So which other university are people talking about universities because the fees are, the scholarship board are coming on? I think for me, the system has to put those things correct. And lastly, sir, with all due respect to the theme, on the issue of the Act, I did say that the issues we are looking at are because of the reaction from Nigerians on the bill. I stand to be corrected. Not up to 5 people have seen the act with Mr. President, apart from members of the committee. So people are talking from what they don't really have details about. And so that's why I'll be circumspect to go into specific issues because we are already discussing them. And the good luck with our democracy is that by the time the executive finish discussing it and they send a bill to you, you have the opportunity to take a look at it and screen out what is not and give better advice. Thank you, sir.
I ask, looking at the present situation of the Act as signed into law, is the program implementable?
Yes, it's implementable, sir.
Very, very.
Yes, on the understanding that, sir, a vehicle is a vehicle. Whether you buy a Volkswagen or a Mercedes, the two can take you to your destination. But it's the speed with which you can get there that is different. As it is now, it is implementable to the extent that we are coming back to the National Assembly, and I think this is part of the work we are doing, to make sure that we increase the speed of getting to our destination, sir.
Looking at the bill as it is, the act as it is, the president, when he signed it, said all conditions and encumbrances has been stood down. All conditions. He did say that. And this is a law. It's a law that you must, if you have to be implemented, you must implement it according to what is in the law, without missing a letter, an alphabet. So I'm scared you're saying it is, if it's implementable to the extent it can be implemented. Also using the vehicle analogy, a Volkswagen and a Mercedes. But the issue is, these two cars, the question is, can they take you to their destinations? If it can, why not start the movement?
Thank you,
2
sir.
months after it has been signed?
Thank you, sir.
Because bring up technical committees, it means there are certain things that are not properly done in the act.
Yes,
that is why you're bringing up technical committee. Yes. We expected that immediately the thing has been signed, the committee has been set up. The fund is not to be sourced. The law has provided how the fund is to be gotten, where it is to be warehoused. So it is now using the law to select beneficiaries and then start the first phase. But whereby you begin to look at the technical committee, to look at the nitty-gritty, it means there is a default somewhere.
Okay.
That's why the mechanic must be brought in to see the Volkswagen engine, what is making it not to move, or the V-boot, the Mercedes.
Yes,
Thank you.
You are a public servant. Huh? You don't know the heat we that actually live within this general public. You don't know what you face every day. You need to go to my office now and see the number of applications, number of letter requests that are actually coming every day as regards this law. That's what you face. And when you are now coming here and telling us that since May, this is August 15, and you are still working at technical whatever, what are these technicalities? That is the cross of the matter. You're too slow. You are making at a snail's speed. And that's not what the Nigerian students are waiting for. And you know them. For want of what, they are restive and they don't even want to listen to all these excuses. That's our concern here. Please state clearly now, how soon are you getting back to the National Assembly as regards this technical whatever? Please.
I think all of us face, with all due respect, we face pressure on the student loans. The person that faced the most severe pressure is even Mr. President himself, who had given a directive that this thing should commence September-October session. So, again, if it goes the way, where I'm talking about technical things or how to get back to you, sir, is Nigerians, we need to understand that there's always a process to get to something. We've had experiences. There has been a Nigerian Education Bank before. The Nigerian Education Bank was given 100 billion to take off. Offices were set up. They were going busy everywhere, building offices everywhere. As I speak to you, sir, that bank did not survive a year. It folded up. Prior to that, we had Student Loans Board that was giving loans to Nigerians. These Nigerians collected the money and ran away.
Sorry,
so
sir.
we cannot continue.
Yes,
sir.
Hold it. You see, this country, we are very fond of excuses. Excuses here and there.
I am not making an excuse, sir.
Yeah.
No, I am not. What I am saying,
listen
sir.
to Mr. Pierce. It hurts me as a person.
Yes, sir.
I'll be a staff of the government. I know what you call bureaucracy. It depends on the head. It depends on how you handle your committee. It depends on how serious you handle the assignment you are giving. For me, after 2 months, you are coming and giving all this and referring to loan board, this and that. We are here to resolve issues. And you should have all these solutions at your fingertips as at today. For God's sake, for you to become a permanent secretary in your ministry, you must have spent in not less than 20 years.
Not correct, sir.
Hold it now. They said you are coming in as a director.
30 years.
Not less than.
So
30
now,
years.
yes, that's why I said not less than 20. Now, if you are now coming here and telling me there was a loan board somewhere in 2000 and whatever, we have all these facts. And once this one is around, we should be armed with all these hiccups, all these challenges, and the resolution should be at our fingertips now. We are at the National Assembly not good to listen to all this. And I'm sure that's why the president is taking a lot of things into consideration. And it's presuming that you are working at its space. That's the technical committee, not you as permanent secretary. So please, this body, this National Assembly is not ready to take all the excuses. We were around last week. The chairman has given a date for our summit. And is it the story you come and tell us at the summit? After 3 months? It's not just adding up. It's not adding up. Please, you are just telling us that you are talking like a typical public servant.
Can I explain?
We shouldn't be.
Yes, sir. Thank God, sir. Just like I can talk, just like you need to talk like a legislator, sir, I have to talk like a public servant. First, when my team came here last week, we gave all the information we had. You insisted you wanted to see me. And I'm here, I'm giving you information. And from the information my team gave, we said there's a technical committee. If you want to look at whether we are making good progress or not, the technical committee, the members are here, they will give you the work plan. But I needed to put some perspectives on the table. That was my statement, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, please, maybe I need a grant to you.
Thank you.
Maybe you should listen.
Because they are the head, they lead the technical, that is the background I have to create, sir. Thank you very much. That he wanted me to tell you that I came.
Mr. Pomsek, the picture you portray as regards the increase in other charges, not the tuition fee, as you said, the increase in fees of other charges, the picture you portray is very sympathetic. When you said in 1987 when you graduated, you were paying 30,000, and today 100,000. Yes, it's true. Going by the cost of living, how things have gone up. Are you getting me? You talk of light, you talk of medical fees, you talk of other things. I really want to say that if this committee you are talking about, the technical committee, is serious in view of what you have just explained, I think there should be some level of speed in the assignment you have been assigned.
Because of the pressure that the National Assembly is under concerning this issue of palliatives to Nigerians as regards the removal of fuel subsidy and the exchange rate issues. This issue has become a really pressing issue for the House of Representatives and for Nigerians in general. That is why you can see the passion, because we know the pressure that we're under and the speed to which we would have preferred the committee to work and to propose amendments, if needed, to this act, even though you say the act is implementable. But we are aware that the president himself announced in his last national broadcast that he's waiving all requirements or all limitations to the Student Loans Act, which means there must be amendments to this act. So which means we're expecting the committee, either the technical committee or the executive arm of government, to send in an amendment proposal to this act from what you have said and what the president himself said in his national broadcast. But I want to speak to Madam Director. You said you were in charge of the student loans scholarship scheme. Is that what you said, ma'am? Federal scholarship. Okay. So I want to look at this federal scholarship both from the angle of the federal scholarship board. Is it a board? Or it's a department in the Federal Ministry of Education. So the student loans board, is it also a department in the ministry?
Mr. Chairman, sir,
Yeah.
at this point, can we let them explain so that it gives a perspective? These are two different things.
No, I know. The central bank is going to shed more light on the financing.
Not more than the financing, sir. They are driving the technical committee. That's the explanation I'm making. They are providing the elements for which we work. So the work plan, the implementation plan, they should be able to speak to it. That's the point.
The reason why I'm trying to clarify is because the act says that the student loans fund will be warehoused with the CBN. That's what the act says. and that the CBN will be responsible for appointing the secretary and it lists out members of the board. But there have been recommendations. The Nigerian Education Bank you alluded to has been repealed by this act. So that means there's no education bank. That means the role that the CBN will be playing vis-a-vis the role of the scholarship board that is already in existence, and what kind of structure will be in place. So does this CBN's role, does it kill the scholarship board in the country?
I was trying to explain, sir. There are various levels of scholarships going on in the country. As grants, Federal Scholarship Board in the Ministry of Education, Petroleum Development Fund have their own scholarship, and some other. So those ones will run independently of the fund. The fund is a loan recovery, they will pay back. The scholarship board is dealing with grants to Nigerian students on an annual basis, both local and foreign, that they are not paying back. The third fund has its own scholarship scheme for research fellows, for university lecturers, they are not paying back. But this loan fund is specifically designed to be, that's why I said, let the CBN give an explanation so that we contextualize our discussion.
All right, can we hear from...
Honorable members, we confirm what the Permanent Secretary has said about the work so far done by the committee. Let me preface our intervention by saying that the bank and also other members, other stakeholders in the technical committee, by the bank I mean Central Bank of Nigeria, has keyed in to the dream of the President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on the urgent need to alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians, especially as regards education, and some of the steps that he has taken, and which I believe will culminate in some executive order in this regard. Like Honorable Ayuba said, that a law is a law. But as we all know also that implementation of law, there is a lot that can happen when you are implementing a law, especially if we are aware of the fact that the law is made for the people. There is a purpose. If you look at the explanatory memorandum of this act and the purpose it's supposed to serve, so everything that needs to be done to achieve this purpose is what we should do to make this law work. Recognizing that fact, this technical committee was set up. And some of the things that we've been doing in this technical committee was first to even look at the law itself. And I can confirm to you that we have a clean bill, proposing amendments to this act. But where I come from, they say maybe fried dog meat can be nutritious. But what will you eat if you have to wait for the frying of the dog? Something needs to happen. We have a mandate that this should happen in December with the new session. And what we have started doing immediately, apart from the bill that we are proposing, which, well, like I said, clean bill, but as a bill, is something you continue to work. It has not come to you, and when it comes to you, in your wisdom, there are other things you propose for this bill. And some of the things we have looked at is, specifically, we can just mention this. Recall that the bill requires guarantees, requires certain level of people who guarantee the persons, but now we're proposing that all those ones should be out, from the bill, So, and with that, more people will have access. In order not to take much of our time, we have been asked to talk about what we have done. Our expectation is that this should be a program different from others. It will be nimble. Looking at the demography that we're looking at, that is the student populace, they are technology savvy, and that is why we're proposing that this office created by this act will be run on autopilot, technologically driven. Application from beginning to disbursement will actually be from the push of button. Nobody is going to be carrying paper around. And what did we identify on our work? Amendment, like I've said already. Then the establishment of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund itself, the setting up of the committee itself, as said in the bill. But that is not for the committee to do. It is for the authority to actually appoint persons deemed fit. Then we should also mention something. The central bank has actually looked at the bill, and the central bank is disposed to a reduced role in this particular structure. The structure we're proposing that you are going to have the executive secretary of the loan committee, and they are the one to drive all this. Then let's also know that Section 2 of the Act that says that this one will be domiciled in central bank. Domiciliation of money is something automatic and ordinary in the ordinary banking business. Know that under the CBN Act, the CBN mandate is to be a banker to government. That is the role that the law expects us to play, and not that central bank is going to be funding this. The funding is also set out there. Yes, there could be constitutional issues about the funding. What about the part of the funding that has no constitutional issue? So then also, honorable members and chairman, budgeting is how the government runs on budget, right? So as beautiful as the plan that we are putting forward may be, there has to be budget for it. So I will push that back to the committee, how what you need to do, to ensure that there is availability of funds for the running of this project. Yes, I know steps have been taken also to make funds available. And again, let's also say that when you eventually amend, the parliament has the power to insert almost anything so long as it's constitutional in any act. All the steps that we might have taken, which might appear to be a departure from the extant act, can actually be cured by the National Assembly when it's passing the law. So I just want to also let us keep that in our pocket so that when the law comes, we know what we need to do. So I can confirm to you, honorary chair members, that right now, the technology design for this project is ready, and because it has to be, the procurement will have to be in accordance with the law, the request for proposal is ready, already prepared by the team from Central Bank and other technical committee members, so the vendors are being invited, not from Central Bank, but it's going to be general, so the moment this is done, and because it's technology, we believe that people will work overnight and get this ready. And accommodation has been procured, and plans are on to furnish this accommodation for the office to run. So what we can assure the committee, the chairman and members, is the fact that the moment we have the approval for the award of this, for the engagement, let me put it that way, engagement of whoever is the vendor that we're merged to prepare the program, I can tell you that within 24, 48 hours, this will be auto-run. And like we said, the moment the portal is prepared and ready, all students who want to key in will be free to key in. Then we can also say, because people can say that, oh, are you not excluding some people? But I still want to assure that as we speak today, I doubt if we have up to 1% of the student populace in Nigeria without a smartphone, and without access to internet, because I believe NUC also, one of the criteria for issuing out licenses will be some of these things. So I think I've mentioned the fact that we have set up an IT-driven framework. We're expecting that the guidelines will be ready also. The guideline that, well, let me use the word, that will guide the running of the project, that from application to disbursement to repayment and the rest of it. So, and to make it easy also for applicants, like I said, certain requirements for now will be stepped down. And happily, His Excellency the President has approved certain waivers, so which I believe can either become part of the new law, which may be retroactive, or become an executive order, which will permit a departure from some of the requirements in the law. So for now, that is the much we can tell us, and we can also say that a chief executive will be appointed as well, as required. The law requires that a secretary be appointed, And like we said, there will be a reduced role of the central bank in this particular one. Maybe not more than the domiciliation of the funds in central bank, just like any other funds anyway. Even the Treasury single account that has been in operation since 2015, that will not be a departure from the norm as well. So that will be the first intervention that we'll have. So if we want further details on some of this, we can still provide. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Act provides, since we're talking to central bank, and I think at this point we're talking numbers, the Act provides that 1% of all federal revenue, all revenue, internally generated revenue, should be applied to the student loans. Have you done an analysis of what this 1% amounts to? And is this amount enough to cover for the student population we have in tertiary institutions in the country? How realistic is this 1%, and what would be your view on the kind of funding we should be considering for the student loans fund?
I'll be very the appropriate office to actually advise on that will be the office of the DG budget office. But figures around, we're not looking at hundreds of billions from what 1% can amount to as it is. And like I said, I'll be cautious to put a number to this. And I know this is critical and necessary to be able to see where we go for the amendment. And that's why the amendment is critical. Because we may just assume that 1% will give us 500 billion. No, that may not be. And if we look at the inflow, the numbers which I don't have now, on that particular one, that is where we can actually extrapolate from. So we can still work out the numbers, and when we're proposing the amendment, we'll factor this one in, because presently now, what we're even proposing, let me just even mention that, is that to avoid constitutional debacle, what we're looking at now is that it is federal government that is proposing it. So it may just well be that we will only be targeting the funds of the federal government, so that we do not have issues with local government and states suing and saying that, no, it's your business, you should handle it, and that also further reduces the funds that will be available. Remember that the fund, if we go by the extant law now, the pool of funds is bigger. So, but constitutional issues, unless we have also constitutional discussions and we have political solution to this, and we have state key in and say we're ready to do X, Y, Z, we will have to be limited with what the law permits. So I may not be able to put number, on top of my head now. Like I said, unfortunately, the budget office is not here. They will be able to tell us that and what numbers we'll be looking at. But we take that on board, that in the proposal that we have, in addition to what we are proposing here, we may just have to factor in the issue that you have mentioned now. Then also note something we have also noted, like the PS said when it was intervening, about the fact that under so many other laws, you already have funds being set aside from their earnings. So and that's why we're targeting taxes, custom revenue, and some other funds from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government in the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
By implication, you are saying that funds will be meant for only federal universities, because you mentioned the fact that states and local governments may not agree to that. And if you won't agree for the deduction of your resources, that means the states, universities, and the rest.
Honorable, if I may just, with due respect, I'm only talking of funds, where funds will be coming from. But remember that every student, either in private, public, state, federal, is primarily first a Nigerian, and this law is made for Nigerian. So discussions are still ongoing, so whether you are going to restrict it. So, and this committee is not, we're not in the position to, that means our technical committee is not in a position to answer that. But we are aware that, as of the fact that all Nigerian students are Nigerians and they are entitled to be taken care of. That's what we can. But I never said that it's only federal institution.
Listening to your well analyzed position of this, act, well, it gives us hope in collaboration with what the PS said. But my question is one, are you sure by the next academic session, starting November, this program will commence?
With your support and the support of all stakeholders, and with the speed at which we're moving, I can tell you that even Saturdays, weekends, we're working. You know, a visit to the site of the accommodation was carried out Friday and Saturday. You know, so we are working around the clock to ensure that everything is put in place. Even if the mandate we have there, even if we have to sit under trees, this thing must run. You know, what I can assure you from my position is the fact that everything necessary for this to start in the next academic session will be done, and this should commence. And again, sir, if I may just let us know, we can imagine how busy the chief of staff is, but it makes time to be involved, you know, directly and through his aides to be involved in the activities of this committee every time, and his doors are open. So, and with such support, I believe that barring any drawback from anywhere, and I believe that such drawbacks will not be anywhere, given the involvement of Mr. President himself, that we should be able to kick off. I think from what I know, and from what the feelers and the feelings I get, we should be able to start. That is the mandate.
So you're telling Nigerians today that by November, this students' loans program will commence?
I'm telling Nigerians that all the technological issues necessary.
That's not the question. My brother from CBN. My colleague did say it, we are here to be specific. After 2 months, we cannot still come here with assumptions on being on the drawing board. We can't come here. If by your assessment, you know the problem with us, Nigeria, we know the truth. The ability to own up to the truth and say it as it is our problem. Having sat on this committee, you've seen the bottlenecks, you've seen the challenges, and as you're sitting here by your own assessment, convincingly, you know whether this program is possible to commence by November or not. But for you to look at the Nigerians and tell them, this is the situation, is a problem. As a man that is sitting, playing a major role in the implementation of this program, are you telling Nigerians by November this program will commence? It's just a simple question. Forget whether technical, whether believing God. God has nothing to do here. It's within humans.
Everything revolves around God is number one, you know, in everything. And we never even mention God. But from my assessment, from the role we are playing in the technical committee, I can tell Nigerians that with the interest and the support of the President and Commander-in-Chief of Nigerian Armed Forces, you know, His Excellency Mr. President, that this is achievable for this to kickstart in this final quarter of 2023 with the support. We're working hard.
When I asked the first question, this is a follow-up, because you're talking about the process of selections and someone being eligible to access this fund. It's not going to be paperwork. It's going to be technologically based. That you're working within, this is August, and we have 2 months from now to have the database of all the students in your system, so that at the point someone is applying, what are the criteria to know you're putting in place to determine the eligibility of an applicant? What are the criteria you're putting in place? Secondly, you said you're going to look at the issue of a guarantor. And the law provides there must be a guarantor. Are you going to step down what the law says by your October projection?
The law is made for man. And if there is any institution that will be behind, that will be pushing, which is what the National Assembly is doing now. The House of Reps is already in the forefront in ensuring that this is achieved. I believe that honorable member maybe is a lawyer, and lawyers are supposed to be complied with before we have a serap going to court that the law is not complied with. What we have presently is that we are on the verge of integrating with JAMB. Nobody in the university in Nigeria today, everybody is expected to go through JAMB, correct? So the database issue may not pose too much of a problem, so long as the institutions concerned, by the time we give them the portal, upload this. Yes, there may be technical issues, but something we should also know is this. The law did not say 100% of Nigerians will access the loan on the go at the beginning. With every project, every program will always have its teething problem. You will have to start pilot. So, for example, if we put the thing out there, if it is 1 million Nigerian students that are able to, well, assuming there are more than 1 million, that are able to access it in the first quarter, so be it. That is not disqualifying others from accessing it when you begin to maybe expand the portal, maybe. So these are some of the things. And for those of us who are, everybody who is familiar with technology issues, yes, you may have with bandwidth problem, you may have as a network problem, you may have all this and that. Yes, but what we are trying to put in place is a scenario where you do not, a Nigerian student does not need to have an uncle in the office to have access. Okay? Because technology does not know tribe, does not know language, does not know anything. So that is why we're going through that route. But what we can tell, honorable member, is the fact that as soon as the portal is almost ready now, it is these stakeholders that will come on board first. Upload the database of your students. Because when a student comes on the portal, put his ID number, and again, let me just, maybe I should lead us a little bit into some of the technical issues at the committee stage. Deciding on a unique identifier that will be used for students is one thing. ABU may have 10-digit ID number. OAU may have 12-digit number. Resolving, what do we use? NIN. Okay? So when you input your NIN and you input your school code, it automatically goes to the portal where your school already uploads all your details. A validation takes place, whether you are a student or not. These are some of the things we are looking at. I can tell Nigerians that this will be a unique project, different from what we had before of the brick and mortar, you know. So, and we just request the support of everybody concerned for this to be driven. We can just give you the assurance that this project will take off as expected. You know, yes, honorable member has put November. We are actually putting September ourselves. Sorry, sir. Honorable, let me just land, sir. You know, why we also plead that whatever we did not say should not be put in our mouth.
Okay, you said September.
No, I'm saying that you are looking at November. But
we're talking about the next academic session.
Let me just finish, sir. We are setting a target earlier than that for ourselves. We are setting a target earlier than that for ourselves. So in order not, remember also that when you are doing your KPIs, all right, you look at what is within your capacity to do, all right? Then you give yourself a small leverage, you know, for externalities, to take care of externalities, things outside your control. You understand? So some of these things we're already working on. And what we can tell you is this. Our technical people are working. When I mean technical people, not the committee, now I have a lawyer, but it's an IT person, you know, leading this. You know, so they are working on all this, and I can tell you that the kind of, if I can use the technical language, the kind of process flow that we're looking at is something that Nigerians will be proud of. We pray that the emerging vendor will do a good job. And for us, they must actually do a good job.
Sounded like a soothsayer here. I'm scared. of the realization of this project. Even my brother did say he's even optimistic before the time I even mentioned, which means this is by September, he's sure it will commence.
Yeah, why are you now scared?
I'm scared. One, we are talking about vendors here. The due process has to be followed. You have to advertise. People will have to bid. For the procurement, you have to follow the Procurement Act. Going by the bureaucratic bottlenecks we all know in this country, I can say vividly that in the next 2 weeks, which by August will be over, the procurement or the selection process for the procurement might not have been completed. I'm not an apostle of doom, but that is the reality on ground. Then, before you now go into selection of who is going to be the vendor to supply, you've just mentioned technicalities here, the ID numbers, the universities, getting all these things into the system. Please, on our part, with what you're saying now, there is no way this program will kick off without the law being amended.
It's okay.
So let us as a House of Assembly, as a National Assembly, have the amended bill which you've worked on, and you said the clean copy is ready. So that even if for the Speaker to recall us in our recess, excuse me, let me learn. The law House of Rep members are 100% ready because our major interest is to see to the workability of the students' loan. So we will not mind to be recalled from recess to sit on this bill and amend it for this program to kickstart. On your part, with what you're telling us, and my prayers is that when we sit again, by first week of next month, the selection process for beneficiaries must have begun.
Like some of the members have mentioned, some technology bottlenecks. I wanted to go into the issue of, since it's a CBN concept, so to say, the issue of NISA, is it NISA they call it? The NISA loans for small businesses and what have you. We are aware that the recovery of these NISA loans is poor because Nigerians take government support as free money. So repayment is always an issue. The secretariat that is being formed to manage these student loans, the platform that is being created, are there plans to ensure recovery of these loans? How will these loans be done? I heard that the commercial banks will be involved in the disbursements, in the KIC aspects of it, and in the recovery of these loans. Are commercial banks equipped to play this role? And can they really, over a long term, this student loan program we hope that will be existing in the next 50 years. Are commercial banks equipped to expand their scope of their operations, create desk offices for student loan schemes within their banks? If these issues, and if you're convinced from the central bank that working with commercial banks rather than the Nigerian Education Bank that was established that should have played this role as a standalone institution supporting student loan activities in the country, but now it will be spread across commercial banks in the country. Are we convinced that commercial banks can play this role and play it efficiently rather than the option of having an institution, a bank, just like we have the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry, and other kinds of government banks to specifically play the role of managing student loans in Nigeria? These are not questions that you need to answer now. I'm just putting these posers because I know that these issues will come up, because these are the issues that we will be asking when the proposals from the technical committee or from the CBN comes up in terms of how you think that these student loan issues will work out. We've proposed a summit or a public hearing, if you like, for next week, Thursday, 24th of August, where we hope that other stakeholders in the education sector in the country will come in and share their own ideas and their views on how these student loans will work. We want to hear from the universities, we want to hear from polytechnics and colleges of education, we want to hear from ASU, we want to hear from the student groups themselves. Because we had a focal group discussion with the students. And one of the issues that they raised was the issue of their upkeep. So are we giving student loans to students and excluding the issue of upkeep? Can these issues be included in these loans? Can a percentage of the loan being disbursed be given as upkeep for students' welfare while in school? Because of course, you know, a student with a hungry stomach or a student who cannot transport himself from point A to point B cannot achieve the full benefit of his being in the university. So is this issue also in consideration? And if it is not, then maybe it also needs to be looked into. And finally, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, the National Assembly is the arm of government that does appropriations. And you mentioned that with the current act as it is, you suggested that there could be a supplementary budget or allocation so that this scheme can start up, and as we move ahead with it, we plug in some of the loopholes and what have you. But we cannot propose a supplementary budget if we don't have an idea of what you think this student loan scheme will cost Nigeria. We cannot have an idea of how much to budget for this if we don't have information from the NUC or from ASU or whichever body is involved, or from JAM, to know how many students get into the federal universities or the public universities annually. What is the likely kind of budget we should be looking at? Are we looking at 500 billion? Are we looking at 1 trillion annually as an estimate based on the total student body that we have in the country? When we are able to have an idea of how much you think the student loan scheme will need to be realistically effective to cover the student population we have in the country, then we can begin to talk about a supplementary budget for this. When the president made his national broadcast, he allocated figures for different aspects of the palliatives that the government intends to execute. But when he came to the issue of student loans, he did not mention a figure, because obviously there hasn't been a framework provided to him to give him a concept of how much could be allocated for this student loan scheme. He could have used the wild imagination of, say, 100 billion for takeoff grants for the student loan scheme. But that wasn't done because there was probably no framework available for him to work with at the time. And these are the reasons why we think that the implementation of this act is moving too slowly, that the president himself is unable to fix a time frame or fix a budget to implementing this student loan act, which was the first act he signed into law when he became president. And it's almost 100 days in office. So please, we want to be sure that the time frame for implementing the Student Loans Act is realistic, it's not too long, can be achievable within the beginning of this next academic year, which for me I think is, we're in August, so you're talking about September, it's less than a few weeks to go. So how realistic is that? Is it feasible even this year at all? We are on recess. The National Assembly is on recess. We're resuming our recess in September. Well, nothing is impossible in Nigeria.
It's not possible.
We are on recess. Well, we are on recess. The first stage of implementing the Student Loans Act is to start the process of amending the Act itself, so that process can commence immediately. And if there's need for a supplementary budget, so that whatever aspects of the student loan scheme can be introduced, And so we hope, Mr. Pamsek, sir, that the proposals, the amendments by the committee, the technical committee, or the overall committee that you mentioned, can be presented to us on the first day of our resumption from recess, so that we can have something to tell Nigerians. It might not be your place, but you can...
Mr. Chairman, sir, that's why I said let the CBN talk, because I sit on the broader committee. They are doing the nitty-gritty of the work. A number of the things they've done, they've not even presented to the committee yet. But the assurances I want to give you, based on what I see from where I sit, first, is that, one, no academic session in Nigeria is starting before September. Let me contextualize this. JAMB 2023-2024 admissions are yet to start because a number of schools do what we call UTMEs. That is universal and what you post UTME. So the admissions, remember, because of the strike, apart from the private and some state universities, academic calendar have been moved back. So what we are saying, and that is what gives us comfort, and I want you to have that comfort too, that yes, it might not be 100% catchment, but the loan is going to start in the 2023-2024 academic session. Importantly, sir. Sorry?
Which starts when?
It can be October, it can be November, depending on the school. Yes.
Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education.
Yes, sir.
When is the next academic session in tertiary institutions?
It depends on the school. A number of schools are still admitting people for 2022 academic, 2022-2023. A number of schools are rolling into their third term. I can talk of the school for my daughter. She's in Unijos. They are starting the new session September, October. There are schools that, because of backlog, cannot start in October. And to get into any Nigerian university, if you do, JAMB has two legs. If you do UTME with your school start, you do post-UTME. So most schools are going to start post-UTME from next 1 or 2 weeks. So for the new intakes, so what I'm saying is that between October and November, we still stand in good time. Let's not think that without this loan, Nigerians will not go to school. No. The loan is making Nigerians that are already in school be in school easy, and those that, if you don't sit for JAMB, you cannot even get into a university. If you don't fill direct entry form for JAMB, you can't get into a Nigerian university. So, with all these things in place, we are giving you comfort, and once the committee finishes and comes to the main committee, they fine-tuned dotted their I's and crossed their T's. Then we revert to the National Assembly with a clean bill. So from where I sit, I know, yes, we can start this loan 2023-2024 academic session, honorable members.
May I plead that government be allowed to implement what the extant laws have provided. And like I said, we know that the implementation of this will actually disenfranchise some people, right? Those who will not be able to get some of the requirements, guarantors and the rest of them. How many students have access to a level 12 officer? You know, you are right there in Aligidi Akoko, close to my place. You are right there in the riverine area of Lagos State, and no member of your family is working in civil service. You don't have a judge, you don't have, you know, so I would say so that we do not, because with due respect, I think what I've just said now is actually antithetical to the purpose of this committee, which is to see that we have early implementation of this project. What I will be requesting that to be commended to this committee will be that go work within the law. I remember I said that of the funding requirements of this project, yes, some may have constitutional issues, some others may not. You know, but meanwhile, this body has the power to convene and say, we convey and we want to give supplementary budget for this particular project. It is within your power. And for anybody, they say it's better to plan. Whoever fails to plan plans to fail. So it's better for us to have it ready like this. Then if there are some legal nuances, if there are legal issues that needs to be taken care of, the National Assembly is over to you. But within what we have done, what has been done by you and our predecessor in office, that is the past National Assembly, what we should do is that let's look at how we can work within this. And I must assure you also that what we as technical committee has actually done is to work within this law while we're also presenting this amendment to you. Of all the, assuming we have 1 million students in Nigeria, of the 1 million students, if we have 110 able to access this, government will have seen to have commenced. Then in the process of working on this, you now see all the teething problems, the major problems. It is then that is easy. So there's a particular bird. They say, try it is the mother of okere, the type of bird. If you try it, you know what the issues are. But if we don't try it, we'll not know what the issues are. So I'll be requesting the committee that rather than leave us with a stillbirth, be the vehicle that will give the fillip to the achievement of the purpose of this act signed by the president while you work on the amendment. And we can assure you that we are all ready to go with the committee on the recommendation on how we proceed with our job.
Well, I must appreciate your insight into the whole letters. It is far ahead of our ministry. So it's a nice one coming from your end. However, thank God I noticed something from your conversation, your presentation. You appear to be from the real core Yoruba end. And if you are coming from there, I want to believe strongly too that you know what a lot of people face in the villages. And that takes me to the issue of access. When you are measuring maybe about 1%, just only 1% that will not have access to smartphone and all the rest, I can tell you that as of today, they are more than that, especially our students in the rural areas. So what I'm saying without wasting much of our time is that the access, I'm not even talking about the guarantors now, where you are referring to Rivera and all the rest that they might now have whatever. Because some of us that are on the field, we know what we pass through. Even when we are organizing jam for them, we are organizing the classes and all the rest, we know how we go through. You go and organize and you go and start bringing them from their various homes to come and assess, just even filling their forms. They call their profile and all the rest. It takes a whole lot of effort. So this loan now, I hope it won't pass through the same process again. I want you to make sure that the access, you are talking about process flow, see, make it as seamless as possible, effortless as possible, so that every Nigerian student, irrespective of smart whatever, please, the technology you are designing, make it very friendly to everybody, most especially the rural students. Some of us are from rural area, we know what they pass through, we know what they experience. So that's what I want you to add into your process flow. Please, thank you.
CBN, in your presentation, I like the way you are so passionate about the work you are doing and the commitment which you seem to show, how you want this project, this program to take off. We are all parents and we have children. I like that dedication. During your presentation, you mentioned something about a secretariat to be created for this program, to be headed by maybe an executive secretary. You also mentioned, as all other funds, all funds are domiciled in CBN. You said that this program will be under an office, which you have not mentioned. Where is it going to be housed, the secretariat?
The Nigerian Education Loan Fund Management Committee. It is this committee that has the supervisory authority, over the affairs. And we can say, yes, the role of the central bank, the governor is the chairman. Then you have is it the minister now, in charge of, the ministry in charge of permanent secretary rather, or the ministry in charge of tertiary education. You have the executive secretary of Nigerian University Commission. You have JAM registrar. You have the executive secretary of National Commission of Colleges of Education. All of them, they form members of this special committee. Now, you remember too, Honorable, that I mentioned the fact that accommodation is being provided. When I mean accommodation, office accommodation. And like we said, this is a body like no other body, I would say. It will have just one office in the whole federation, driven, almost autopilot, like I said. So the location, we cannot tell now until we finalize, until it is furnished, but there will be an office in Abuja.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Please, you cannot tell us, is it a security matter?
Okay, it's in Asokoro.
Please, let us know the location. Mr. Chairman, sir, please, I think this committee would like to take on the spot assessment to ascertain the level of work being done by the technical committee towards the takeoff of this grant.
You have one pilot office. This one pilot office, the person in my village, actually in my government in the states, have issue with the process. But you have to come to Abuja to sort the thing out since you have one pilot office. So how will it function? My friends in Karanamoda in Zamfara State, how will they also function and access this office when they have this issue? Thank you.
There are a lot of questions to be asked. There are a lot of gaps, so to say, there are a lot of gaps, a lot of questions to be asked that need answers. We've talked about the technology aspect of the student loan scheme, which we think is commendable. I believe personally that any student of any higher institution in Nigeria should have the basic skills of technology, of ICT. This is a global standard now, so I don't have a problem with that. But like our colleagues have raised here about the physical location of this board or this secretariat who will be administering the student loans fund, we want to be sure that you have a specific location. And if there is no specific location in place yet, then we want to know how soon can you provide information about this location. You mentioned in passing that it is in Asokoro. So we want to know, if you don't have the address with you here, if you don't have the address with you here today, or the address has not been finalized, then it's better to tell us that the address is being worked on and that you will provide us information concerning the address, because part of our responsibility is to also to see that the necessary infrastructure is in place and that the committee is actually taking steps towards achieving these goals. So that is the point that the committee is interested in. That's why you see the issue of the office location. Now, these issues are critical because a lot of times we go through these processes over and over again. I just want to encourage us, finally, that we continue to push this project for Nigerians and for Nigerian students. I want to insist that we take this job as an issue of urgent national importance, because as far as we are concerned from this aspect, this is part of the palliatives that government wants to introduce to help mitigate the impact of the sufferings that Nigerians are feeling today. Because like I always say, it affects the parents, it reduces your burden on your resources for sponsoring your children in higher education, and it has a ripple effect across board. So with that being said, I want to thank members of the committee for being here today and our guests, and we'll be looking forward to meeting you again, hopefully on the 24th, which is next week, Thursday. I will expect on that day maybe there will be something written in the written format so that we can collect this information along with the details from the general public, recommendations from ASU, from other stakeholders and policymakers in the country, and put this together as a report, which we will now, on that basis, we'll have a debate on the floor of the House of Representatives, and the final recommended amendments to the bill will then be put forward, of course in partnership with the executive, and then we'll get something passed into the law that is workable and is effective and efficient for our Nigerian students. So with that being said, I want to move that this meeting stands adjourned. Sine die.
And that's the program today from the National Assembly, House of Representatives. We thank you for watching and we look forward to seeing you again next week. I am Mitaire Ikwen. Bye for now.